Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Gallner. I'm the Chief Public Affairs Officer at JAX Chamber. Thank you for joining us on this is now the first of a 5-part series of webinars that we're conducting for our members as we try and help everyone kind of get back to work and get through what we're dealing with here. This first in the series is we have Pat McManamon with Sandler Training. He is going to talk to us about growing sales and revenue in this new normal. If you go to the Q&A section, Pat has a great presentation for us. We're going to get to some questions at the end. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we'll get to as many as we can for Pat. Just a little bit about Pat. He is the founder and president of Sandler Training in North Florida. He started that in 1998. And in that time, he has trained nearly 12,000 salespeople with different backgrounds and experience levels. Prior to that, he spent 18 years with CSX as their Director of International Sales. Pat has great information for everyone here, some really good practical tips and training. And I know anyone who's trying to sell right now, it's a different environment. And so any help we can get would be great. And Pat, please, thank you very much for making time. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is a very common topic, as you guys can imagine. And, you know, the Sandler Network was faced with a lot of the same challenges that you guys were. We were able to come together as a group. We've got about 250 franchise offices around the country. And so we were able to share best practices related to how to respond to this situation we're all in together. And so I'm going to walk you through some of the things that we brought to the surface as far as how we're helping our clients get through this, and frankly how we're getting through it ourselves. We realize that you know, if you try and just wish for the old days to come back, that we're going to be doing a lot of wasted time and effort, because the old days are probably not going to come back, and I hope that's not a huge surprise to anybody. So we're just going to talk about moving forward. And so I want to leave you here with a couple tips today. Matt mentioned that we're going to have some time at the end for questions, and be happy to answer those. I do know at least a handful of you on there, so please don't use this time to play Stump the Trainer. But if there's a question that I can't handle, I'm just going to tell you that I don't have an answer for it. So. And as any of you that have done any kind of Zoom or go-to meetings, it's inevitable that whenever you start a presentation, the lawn person comes by, or in this case, right behind my office, the guy is deciding right now to be blowing off the back deck. So I got that going for me. But I think with that, everybody can appreciate those type of things, because we're all dealing with these different challenges. You're on a call and the doorbell rings and people can hear that, the dog starts barking, but hey, it is what it is, and you just got to persevere and stay with it. So let's jump into the presentation, and again, we'll save questions for the end. Be happy to try and answer any that I can. So let's look at just an overview where this content, where this information is coming from. The Sandler Network, again, it's throughout the U.S. as well as many international locations. So we train about 30,000 people a year, and you know, when people do the Sandler training, 50% more of them reach their quotas. This is a little fun fact for you. Just even before pre-COVID, there was only about 65% of sales organizations have their salespeople make quota. So I don't know if that's surprising to you, but when I first heard that, that was a little bit disheartening to think that there was that many people that consistently did not make their number. And you know, as a result, that the organization structured and probably the individual suffered because of it. So a couple other things: 80% of salespeople improve their sales strategy going through Sandler, and then there's a higher chance of clients would recommend Sandler after they've gone through it. So that's just kind of a credibility statement, and I appreciate you guys indulging me to let me give you that piece of it as to why you should listen. So let's talk about where we are as professionals. if you look at the analogy from a professional athlete perspective, many of them have said that this time has been the best time for them to really get their game to the next level, really to take it to the next plateau, because they've been able to train more and they've been able to check out what their competition does and study those opponents and figure out how to best compete against them and ultimately beat them. So hopefully you're seeing the parallel and the connection between professional athletes and professional salespeople. Unfortunately, some people took the time that was down where we were all in the forced to work from home environment, and they took the time to just chill out. Maybe watch too much TV, maybe watch too much news, and maybe get too much caught up in the negative vibe that was out there that things are never going to be the same and our business is going to hell in a handbasket. Those that were able to rise above it, those that were able to realize that this is a time to sharpen the saw and really look at our competitive landscape, we're the ones that were able to and are now coming out of this situation much better and are most likely going to see themselves in a much more competitive situation and a much more productive situation, because they have taken the time during this slower time when people maybe are not quite as prone to meet with us or talk with us or engage with us, to pull back, sharpen the saw, look at creating systems and processes around your go-to-market strategy, because things in fact have changed. I'll ask you a rhetorical question right now that says, based on the amount of change that has happened in your marketplace, have you made the similar adjustments to your change in going to market sales strategy? So based on the amount of change that has happened in your marketplace, have you changed proportionately to reflect that change? Or are you or your people still trying to use some of the old tactics that were appropriate back before all this stuff happened in today's market, and unfortunately it's not appropriate? So throw that out there from a perspective of just saying, if your answer is no, it's not proportionate, then you need to think about, what are some changes I need to make in order to respond to the new normal? Maybe that's why you're on this call. So understanding that to emerge stronger after COVID, people need to reskill themselves and improve their workforces. That's according to the McKinsey company. Most of you know that as a pretty high level and pretty well-regarded consulting firm. So we're going to use today's talk with the backdrop of what Sandler calls our success triangles. Success triangles puts the three elements of behavior, attitude, and technique into one formula to help us understand that those three together are really what people need to work on in order to take themselves, their professional career, their sales to the next level. So what does that mean? So attitude, we're going to dive into specifically, what is your mindset? What is your outlook related to your current situation, yourself in the current situation, and your company? Let's move down to behavior, and then we're going to dive deeper into each of these some more. But behavior is kind of the goals and plans you have, and your willingness to stick to those goals and plans. And then the technique, which is what, frankly, a lot of times people will look to a company like ours for skills, is the technique side of thing, where you're talking about, give me some sales moves, some sales techniques. And the point is of this graph is to show that while technique is certainly part of it, in the absence of attitude and behavior, you're going to fall short. And that'll be more evident over the next couple slides that I go through. So let's look at the formula that says, when you look at behavior and technique, but your attitude isn't in the right place, meaning you don't have the proper mindset, you have a skeptical mindset about the marketplace, your company, or yourself, that you don't think you're qualified to be selling in today's marketplace, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of activity, which is the behavior piece. You might even be executing on the right techniques, but your attitude is getting in the way. And so as a result, you're going through the motions. Now, if you look at the formula from a different perspective, where you have attitude, your mindset about you believe in yourself, you believe in your company, and you believe that the marketplace needs your products or services, and your techniques are pretty good, but you're not doing the activity enough. You're not in the game enough. You're not having enough at bats. You're working frantically, and frankly, your results will be sporadic. And then the third element to that is, again, using this behavior, attitude, technique formula. If you take attitude, your mindset, your belief, your outlook, plus the activity where you're doing enough activity, but you're not using techniques to the appropriate level, or you haven't refined your techniques, or your skills are not what they need to be, you're frankly working too hard. So what I want you to do is to think about, go back. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write each of these down, or something in each of the three, but write down what's one attitudinal thing that you can remind yourself each day in order to keep your game in the right place, in order to keep yourself in the game. Same would be from a behavior perspective. What's one behavior or activity that you could do? In fact, let me change it up a little bit. If you were giving advice to a younger you, or if you were giving advice to a younger employee that just joined your company, what's the one thing that you would tell them that they need to do every day in order to be successful? And write that down. And then the third piece is from a technique perspective. What's a major technique, or what's a major bucket that you think about from a technique perspective that is critically important that you need to refine in your sales effort? Is it prospecting? Is it qualifying? Is it ensuring that you ask budget questions? Is it ensuring that you are talking to the decision makers? Any of those things or all of those things, but identify one for yourself in order to figure out what is the thing that you need to focus on and remind yourself on a daily basis in order to be successful. So I'll give you 30 seconds. It'll give me a chance to take a sip of water, and then I'll jump back into it. All right, hopefully you came from some good things. If you didn't come up with any good things, then that's on you, because I didn't hear what you said. But it's I encourage you to look at what you wrote down if you think that it's got some value. If there wasn't enough time and you couldn't come up with something that you thought was really solid, take that exercise and continue it even after we're off this call, to ensure that you start the day with a reminder that you're going to be working on one of those three things, or all three of them. Okay? So let's change gears and let's look at this from a different perspective. In today's market, the biggest challenge that we're seeing is buyers, customers, prospects are reluctant to make a decision, and they're reluctant to make a change. Kind of the devil they know is better than the one they don't know. So that being the case, we need to recognize within our own territories, within our own markets, within our own customer base, that our customers, our prospective customers, fit into 4 different categories. So we use this as a territory planning tool, but I would suggest you could use this as a tool to help you identify where you need to be spending your activity and what activities you need to be doing in each of these 4 quadrants. So I'm going to dissect each of them for you so that you have a better understanding. Let's look at a keep account. So the keep accounts are ones that you're already doing business with. They are somebody that have been kind of tried and true. They're staying with you through all of these challenges, and you just need to make sure that they still know that they're loved and appreciated. So what's the attitude that you need to maintain about those keep accounts? And I'll give you a hint. It's different than taking them for granted. So it could be the opposite of that, and I'll let you come up with some of the things that you need to maintain as an individual salesperson as well as a company. What are things you need to do in order to maintain and retain those accounts? Because those are your bread and butter. Those are the accounts that are going to stay with you, and they're going to be your base of business as you look to grow this new revenue. Now let's move over to the attain accounts. Attain accounts are, hopefully that's obvious, those are ones that you don't have today, but you would like to, because they fit your prospect profile, and they are somebody that would actually be a good target for you. So we recommend that you don't have more than 10 active attain accounts in your portfolio at any given time. Now, it could change based on your industry, but 10 allows you to stay focused on those. And then when somebody either moves into a new account or they move out because it's clear that they're not going to become a prospect or a customer of yours, then you fill it with someone else. So that's a dynamic list that you have, but it's a list of attain accounts that fits the prospect profile that you've created as far as who's the ideal prospect for us, what's the makeup, what are some of the examples of customers that are in our keep account, why are they keeps, and what are some of those attributes that we'd be looking for in somebody that we're not doing business with and that we want to go after. Okay, so that's a whole separate set of activities that you can do related to the attain piece. Moving down to the recapture, there's a number of customers that unfortunately a lot of us have had that used to do business with us, and then something happened. Either they fell off because we weren't giving them the love and attention that they needed, or the market changed, or maybe their management changed. But anyway, those are customers that used to fit into your profile and used to be customers of yours, and there could be a whole strategy about going after those because there's already an understanding about who you are, what you do to a certain extent in most cases. So there's probably some that have left you, and there could be reason for them to come back. Much easier to go after those than just a cold market. And again, cold market in today's environment, unfortunately, we're finding that people are very cautious and they're undecisive or not making any decisions at all. They're not making any changes because of the flux of things. So many other things have changed so dramatically, people aren't taking dramatic actions. So the recapture is a little bit closer to somebody that has been with you. They know a little bit about your organization. They know that they left you because maybe a pricing scenario or a model change or a product change, but things change dynamically in those customers as well. So it's worth it to go back, identify those that have left you that you'd like to have back, and design a strategy about those. How are we going to go after those, just to figure out if we can bring them back into the fold. And then the fourth piece of the territory management tool is the expand. This is probably the biggest growth area for organizations that a lot of people miss. And that's that oftentimes organizations that are enjoying a customer's business at a significant level still may only have 20–30% of their business. So taking that relationship and going from 20 to 30% of their business and bringing it up to 50% of their business would be a significant bump to any of us on this call for very little effort if we're able to identify what it is and why they're not currently using it. So one of the ways to look at this is to create a matrix of your products and services and figure out, just like using the check marks in the rows, figure out which products and services are used by each of your top, 25 accounts. When you look at those top 25, I think when you see it in a graphical format, in a matrix format, you'll see there's a tremendous amount of focus in maybe just 2 or 3, but there's a lot of products and services that are offered and required or appreciated by your overall customer base that many of your existing customers currently aren't using or buying from you. So taking this time to look at what are our current relationship, what's our current wallet share or market share of our customers, and what areas or products or service can we offer that we currently provide for companies, but these customers just don't use it. And so looking into that will help you to understand where you can focus your activities and again, expand the relationship. Much easier to do that than going cold. Okay. So I mentioned prospect profile earlier. Some of the things that come up related to, people are doing more with less. They're looking to, figure out what's the best effective strategy to go to market. And the idea is take this time to identify what it is, what's the new animal look like that we're hunting? Because it may have changed. Market conditions may have changed. What used to be a lucrative customer profile for you is no longer lucrative, and so you need to change your hunting strategy. You need to change your profile of who you're going after and identify that. Okay. So in today's marketplace, who do you best serve? What are they currently doing relative to your products and service? What are some of the pain indicators? And I'll come back to that. What are some trigger events that your account profile will help you identify? And I'll use this example of a financial investment person. If there's any financial investment persons, they refer to them as life events. Like maybe they got a divorce, or they sold their business, or they just retired. Each one of those, from a financial planner perspective, is an opportunity for them to go in and help identify products and services that can help get them through that next chapter of where they're heading, the customer that is. So identifying in each of your examples what are trigger events that can be seen by the outside world to figure out where you can best help somebody, what changes are happening within their organization, or what changes are happening within their lives, is a good way to identify trigger events that you can pump out and communicate to your strategic partners and your referral partners, because that's what people can typically see. They may not know that somebody's got $2.5 million in a savings account and they really should have it invested somewhere, but they would know that somebody just sold a business. So that would be an example of what are the trigger events in your business that your strategic partners and your referral partners could identify, could clearly see from an outsider, from a layman's conversation. And when they give you that introduction, they can give you the specific reason as to why they think that the two of you should be speaking. So those are the trigger events. And circling back up to the pain indicators. What pain indicators are within Sandler Training is a recognition that most prospects will indicate on the surface what some of the problems and challenges that they're having. Example in our world. Oftentimes, VPs of sales, owners of businesses talk to us about, our people don't prospect enough, or we've got a lot of turnover in our sales force, or we find that we're doing a lot of proposals that don't go anywhere. Those are what we call pain indicators. So surface level challenges that a business owner or manager will openly admit. And if you identify those, that will help give you some direction as to how you introduce yourself, and also how you can create some marketing around people that you can help based on those pain indicators. Then when you get with them, then we suggest you use the questioning strategies that we subscribe to that talks about taking them down the pain funnel. Once you get them from the surface pain, if you can take them down the pain funnel to where you understand not the surface challenge, but also the impact that it's having on them professionally and personally, that makes it more compelling for them to take action, and that's where we need them to be. Okay? So, top 20, 25 accounts, also another exercise you can do. Look at using things like a SWOT analysis. Where are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and possible challenges or threats. Okay. And again, not all of your accounts need to fit into this because it would turn into an exercise in futility, but you pick the line of demarcation. Is it top 20? Is it top 20%? Is it top 30? Depending on the size of your organization, that's going to probably dictate where you stop. But understanding from the account planning perspective is, where do they fit within your territory? Is there reason why you don't want to go after certain people based on their physical location? Right? Are you driving past 6, 8, 10 other customers in order to get to this prospect, when in reality you could be prospecting much closer to home? Say you're in a service business and you don't want to extend your delivery service beyond a certain scope. So identifying what it is that's a realistic territory for you will help. What's also the existing in your existing accounts, your profit margins? Are there areas that you need to be tweaked in order to improve upon? Also, another way to grow revenue without changing any product mix or customer mix or increasing customers, just understanding where your profits are coming from or not. And then in this change, in these last 6 months or so, what products or services have changed, and what approach do you need to change in order to go back to your existing customers and introduce that in the form of a sales pitch? Okay, so take a look at your account plans, because there could be a lot of hidden gems in those customers that you're currently doing business with that are already receptive to taking your call or responding to an email or getting on a Zoom call or a go-to meeting, that will give you the opportunity to help them further by a new product or service. So let's talk about sales strategies, planning and debriefing. Two things that, frankly, salespeople don't embrace until they see the merits of it. So some things to think about in your pre-call planning, rather than, and I know nobody on this meeting would do this, but believe it or not, sometimes salespeople just go into a call without any preparation. They just go in and they just depend on their gift of gab, and they think, I'll just wing it and I'm sure everything will come out fine. Sometimes that happens and it works. Most of the time it doesn't. And so that's why we suggest that wherever you're calling on somebody, or whenever you're calling on somebody, that it's an important opportunity, which frankly in this day and age, almost all of them are important opportunities. Make sure you have some form of pre-call planning checklist. And this is just a suggestion of some of the things, but just take the time to really set the plan together in order to figure out what it is you want to get out of it. Will really help you to maximize the opportunity. So taking the time and just writing out, and especially if you're making a joint call, making sure that both of you or all of you are on the same page as to what are you hoping to accomplish in the call. Identifying who's most logically should be involved to participate in the call. Also talking about how much time is available, yours and theirs. Talk about what decision you're hoping be going into it will be made at the end, and introduce that concept at the beginning. That says, we're going to spend 45 minutes here with the hopes that at the end, we can figure out whether or not to go forward with a test, to go forward with a pilot project, to go forward with a analytical review of your current situation, whatever it is that would be the next step, next logical step after your first meeting, both ideally and unfortunate, meaning that there's not a fit. Talk about that at the front end so that when it gets to the end, there's not that awkward conversation that ends with your prospects or your customers saying, well, yeah, this has all been good. Let me think it over. And then you both leave that meeting with no clear understanding as to what the next step is going to be. And then last is just make sure that you understand that you go through the process of thinking about what's going to be that stumper, what's going to be that question that they ask that will really make me swallow hard, that might make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, might make the whole conversation feel awkward. And if you can anticipate that, which by the way, I'll give you a clue, those usually come up about every other call. And every time what happens, until we realize it, we start realizing, man, that call comes up or that question comes up all the time. And it really does make me feel uncomfortable, or I really don't know how to answer that question. Well, if you know that it's going to come up every time, probably be a good time to figure out how to answer it. So that's just a kind of a backlight to that whole concept. But just with that being said, just know that based on who you're calling on, what type of industry they are, what level they are within the organization, they may ask you a question that you wouldn't want them to ask. Now's the time in the pre-call planning is to anticipate it and practice your answer. Okay, so it's take some time, which a lot of times sales people don't want to do. Take the time on the front end in order to make the call run smoother. Now the best learning happens on the back end. Too many organizations miss this opportunity. This is a great opportunity to resurrect an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to figure out what other resources need to be involved. And it's a great opportunity to figure out where the individual salesperson needs some training and skill development. Okay. In the debriefing process, if you consistently see a pattern of people not coming back with certain bits of information, it's probably because they're either technically uncomfortable in trying to uncover that information, or they're conceptually uncomfortable, meaning that they've got some what we call head trash about asking questions specific to that topic. So look for patterns when you're doing debriefing, whether you're doing it on your own or when you're doing it with your coworkers and salespeople, because in those patterns will be clear indicators as to where you might need to do more training, or you might need to use it as a coaching opportunity. So in our world, we suggest that you have debrief questions related to what are their pains? And without getting into the full spectrum of what we talk about as far as pain, it's a different way of saying pain is what is their compelling reason to change from their current situation? What is their compelling reason to change from their current situation? If you or your people don't have that answer, there's a pretty strong chance that there's not going to be an action taken. Another way of saying that is, another way of saying what are their pains is saying, what is the gap between where they are and where they want to be? And again, if you or your people can't clearly articulate what that is, that's going to be the thing that's going to get in your way going forward. And based on those pains or gaps, do you, as an organization, have a viable solution? Excuse me. If you don't have a viable solution, this is the time to be the true professional and say, you know what? I can see where your challenges are. I understand it, but we don't have the product or service to meet that. Your credibility will go through the roof, and it will give you the opportunity to sell down the road when they do have a need for the product or service that you have that best fits their need. Because unfortunately, we have all sold to somebody a product or service that we thought could work, but it ended up being a complete nightmare. So while we got the gratification of making the sale, the backside hassles and challenges and complaints were not worth it. And frankly, probably took us way out of our game and way out of our sweet spot of where we should be spending our time. So just be honest with yourself, understand whether or not you truly have a viable product or service to deal with the pains, challenges, and gaps that they said that they have. And then understand that the debriefing thing, to understand the question related to, are they willing to invest the time, money, and resources in order to fix the challenges that they have. So people might be willing to change, but they don't have the resources. They may not be able. Or they may be able to expend the money, but they don't have enough compelling reason to change. So they're just not willing. So understand that there's two components to that related to the money and the time and the resources. Is this challenge big enough to fix right now? Because if we don't ask that question, if we don't uncover that, we will then spend our time, effort, and energy putting together what we think is a very compelling package, putting it in front of them, and them saying, this is exactly what we need. When we're ready, we will come back and engage with you. But right now, we've got bigger fish to fry. I'll ask this question rhetorically. If that was going to happen, if they were going to say that, would you want to know before or after you've done your presentation? I think I universally could see people saying they would like to know before, because after allows us or forces us to spend a lot of energy putting together a proposal that doesn't go anywhere. And by the time it comes back to where it is a priority, the chance of us being the first thought to come to mind is not necessarily guaranteed. We'll just put it like that. So also in the debriefing process, there's usually most people on this call probably have more than one single sales call that might have multiple sales calls. Just ensure that there is clarity as far as what we call the clear future, understanding what's going to happen next. And the litmus test for that would be if you put the salesperson and the person they were calling on in two separate rooms and said, okay, you guys ended that meeting, what's going to happen next? The litmus test would be if they both had the same answer. And so that's the level of clarity you're looking for as far as when you end the meeting, is getting the clear future agreed upon so that there's no what we call mutual mystification. Okay? And then the last thing is just putting into your repertoire or putting into your people's repertoire an understanding as to what happens, what if this doesn't happen? Meaning, what if you don't address these pains, gaps, and challenges? And letting your prospect articulate that. If they may say, we may go out of business in the next 6 months if we don't address this. Are you looking to stay in business? Chances are, yeah. Then the likelihood of them taking action improves significantly. You may get a question that or an answer that surprises you. And that may sound like, well, it's been a problem for, I guess, the last 6 months. So I guess it's not that big of a deal if it happens for another 6 months. That would be information you'd like to know before you garnered all the resources of your organization together to put together a Mac Daddy proposal, only to have it fall flat because the timing wasn't right. All right. I mentioned behaviors earlier. Behavior is the activity that helps us to get to the ultimate conclusion. And so what we call kind of in a reverse engineering perspective, understanding how many opportunities you need to close and back that into, of those, how many proposals do you need to have in order to get to the number of closes? And prior to that, how many meaningful conversations do you have to have in order for those that conversation to result in a proposal stage? And then prior to the meaningful conversations, how many just attempts do you need to do in order to get to have those meaningful conversations? And what you're doing is you're working backwards from my number for this year is I need to sell this number of widgets, or I want to have this kind of revenue. You're working backwards to identify, well, that's the revenue piece. And now I need to figure out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, what kind of activity, what are the specific activities and the frequency of those activities do I need to do in order to be successful? One of the biggest challenges that we see with salespeople and sales organizations is that they don't put the level of importance on prospecting that they do with anything else. So a salesperson will put more time and effort into cleaning out their emails and doing research at the expense of prospecting. And if the prospecting activity isn't happening on a consistent, regular basis, then the attitude about what's going on in the marketplace starts to fall. And obviously, if you don't have enough at-bats, you're not getting enough practice in the batter's box. And so your technique isn't what it needs to be. And so going back to that success triangle that I opened up with, it kind of becomes a full circle or a full triangle where one leads to the other, going in the wrong direction. So understanding what your behavior needs to be on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is critical as far as ensuring your success based on what your definition of success is. So traditional sales process, similar to what we recommend without getting into all the details, but ensure that you and your organization has a sales process of agreed upon what we'll call macro steps to the sales process. So in this case, we're talking about identifying the opportunity, then have a discovery meeting. In the Sandler world, we make sure that in that discovery meeting, there's an assurance that we uncover the pain or the compelling reason for them to change. And it's their compelling reason, not ours. Just want to be clear on that. What is your prospect's compelling reason to change? Then you address the how your solution would address that, would take care of those particular problems. You present the proposal and then you close. So if you don't have a sales process, ensure that you do, because that's where repeatability and prospecting or a process improvement can get better, because you've got a track to run on. In the absence of a track, it looks like a spaghetti bowl and a spaghetti conversation. So Sandler system looks like this. It's continuous circle, because we're starting with establishing trust, and that needs to be maintained throughout. And that's what we call bonding and rapport. Using an upfront contract manages expectations, making sure that all parties are understanding as to where they are in the process. The pain I already spoke a fair amount about. It's what's their compelling reason to make a change and to take action. And then understanding from a budget perspective, are they willing to spend the time, money, and resources it's going to take in order to change from their current habits and their current relationship to change to you? And understanding, helping them facilitate the decision process. What's the criteria that they're going to use? And don't lose the nuance of that. Asking the question of what's the criteria that they're going to use in order to select their new service provider is key, and it's different than understanding the decision maker. Most salespeople see the decision step as saying, "Are you the decision maker?" Of course, they are told yes, and then when they get to the point of saying, "Okay, make a decision," they say, "Well, I've got to run it by," and then they list about 6 different parties. So much more effective, much improved question would be, what's the decision criteria you use in order to make a decision like this? Once you understand those points of pain, budget, and decision, those are what we call the qualifying or disqualifying steps. You then move into the fulfillment step, which is where you get to present how your solutions are going to address their pains in alignment with their budget and according to decision criteria. And then the last step in our system is the post-sell, where you are ensuring that the deal doesn't go sideways or your prospect doesn't have buyer's remorse because they agreed to do it and then they had that fear of conflict of knowing that they've got to call your competitor and the incumbent and tell them that they are no longer providing the service. So if they're going to have those second thoughts, what we're suggesting is that have them rehearse it with you. That sounds a little bit like, what are you going to tell those folks that, when they call and say, "Hey, we realize we haven't seen any business for a while." What's that going to sound like? And we call that the rehearsal piece. And it gives them just the thought of, it gives them the time to think through that. And if they're going to hesitate, this is the time you'd want them to do it while you're right there in front of them. So, understanding clear future, and I understand from a time perspective, I'm getting up against it. So, clear next steps, making sure that on each of the different segments that you have clear next steps. All parties know what's going to happen next on a phone call, via email, after you've closed the sale, and any time that you're in a situation, whether it's live or virtual. Okay. Tips for leaders. Don't know how many sales leaders or owners are on this call, but just understanding that agreeing with your people as far as what a cookbook entails, what are the behaviors that they need to do in order to be successful based on their level, their success. Role playing, while most organizations don't do it, those that do say that it's very effective and see that there's a tremendous win by doing it. One of the challenges as a leader is that you need to participate in the role play. You get sensitive to what it feels like. Oftentimes we suggest that in a role play scenario, the sales manager or sales leader goes first. Next is making sure that your people, from a prospecting perspective, are creating time blocks. They're setting out each week what amount of time they're going to do each day and what specific time elements are going to be on their calendar to ensure that they do the activity that's related to that behavior. See if they're in your business, see if there's what we call a monkey's paw, because people are a little bit hesitant in this marketplace, in this new normal, about making a big change immediately. They're a little bit risk adverse. So a monkey's paw is what we call, I won't get into the orientation of it, but it just talks about a small sale before a big sale. So if there's a way for you to go in and do an analysis of their current scenario, if maybe a technology would be a good example, rather than selling them a whole technology and software package, just going in there and doing a paid analysis of their current situation would be an example of a monkey's paw. And then create playbooks that are repeatable throughout your organization that identify what are the key steps of what happens in the different scenarios and the different elements of the sales process. As a leader, it helps you from having to reinvent the wheel every time you're bringing somebody on, every time you're doing a coaching scenario, every time you're bringing somebody up to their expected level of performance. And that's it. So I will turn it back over to, I think it goes back to Matt, and just see if there was any questions that had been submitted.
Great, thanks, Pat. We really appreciate that presentation. It's a lot of great tips and a lot of great information for everyone. So thank you again for making time for our members today. You ended on leaders, and so there was one question that we had about that is, so what's the role of a sales manager like in this virtual selling environment?
That's a great one. Yeah, things have changed. You can no longer just stop by someone's office or stop by someone's desk and ask them how it's going. With people being all virtual, the best practice that we've uncovered is making sure that there's frequent contact with your people in the field, and it's the contact and the communication is related to being a resource for them, not Big Brother. So checking in on them just to make sure that they are, how they're feeling about the current marketplace or what's going on in their personal life, and making sure that that level of trust has been established and is maintained in this new disparate world that we're living in. Just touching base with your people, just because, not checking in on them, but just touching base with them just to feel out, you know, is there anything that you need to be doing for them as a resource, will go a long way in keeping them focused.
Great, thanks. One other question we had is, I know so much of the networking is done face-to-face in networking events and having meetings and coffee and lunch with folks. Since a lot of that isn't really in play right now. What do you recommend for connecting with new prospects?
Yeah, this is where some creativity is coming into being. We've seen a number of very creative ways. I've heard of a virtual lunch where either with a customer or a prospect, where salespeople have actually had Grubhub or somebody deliver lunches to their customers, and then they actually have a meal on one of these type platforms, whether it be GoToMeeting or Zoom or something like that. And in the course of that, they're able to establish a relationship and uncover some challenges that the prospect might be having possibly. And if nothing more, they're setting themselves up for a relationship going forward. That's just one
That's a
example.
really good idea. You talked a lot about, or you mentioned briefly at the beginning, sales quotas, and even before the pandemic, a lot of people weren't hitting those quotas. How have you seen companies adjust the quotas for their staff and the expectations as COVID has kind of hit and stayed a little bit longer than some we maybe thought it would?
Yeah, I gotta say that I haven't seen many adjustments to quotas because there's been a tremendous amount of growth in a lot of industries that obviously is not getting the airtime, but the more I'm thinking about it, I don't think that I've heard anybody where organizations have taken their foot off the gas related to what the expectation is. I've heard a number of organizations, and obviously it's different by industry, but there's been somewhere they're actually having expectations that the year end 2020 is going to be bigger than what they had projected. Now that could be a nuance of their business, or it could be just the competitive fall off, or any number of things. But I find that interesting as well. But yeah, I think there might be a few industries that are just, their customer base may have just dried up completely, and they've got to make a determination as to whether or not that industry is going to come back, and whether or not they can wait, or whether or not they've got to pivot and find a new market for their product or service.
Great. One other question we had is, Pat, how much time would you recommend salespeople spend with the production team so they can better understand the process and how it's implemented? What the team of, the folks that are producing what they're selling, basically.
Yeah, I would suggest that concept go both ways. But I'll answer the first part, in that salespeople, as part of their onboarding and through an ongoing process, need to be sensitive and appreciative as to what goes on the operational or delivery side of their business. And so spending the time early on, it might be, a couple hours a week, each week. Over time could be spread out. But it's also important to recognize that, just as I was talking about the importance for building a relationship and maintaining a relationship between the sales manager and their salespeople in this remote environment or this virtual environment, it's also important to appreciate that there's got to be a relationship between the salesperson and the operational person in order for them to do the best thing for their customers. And so that needs to happen naturally, as opposed to in a forced situation. The only time the salesperson talks to the operational person is when they've got a demand or a complaint, because that eventually that rubs the relationship pretty raw pretty quickly. So just like I talked about the behavior, the activity that we need to do in order to be successful, part of the activity, part of the behavior that salespeople need to do is make a conscious or intentional effort to make sure that they are building a relationship with the key operational people, and being able to spend time with what's sensitive to them as far as what salespeople do that disrupt their operation. And then the same is true with operations people. They need to understand what the challenges that salespeople are up against, so that they don't create this image that salespeople just hang out all day, wait for the phone to ring, and occasionally get to play golf or eat at a fancy restaurant, which is oftentimes what salespeople are accused of.
Thanks, Pat. One more that we had is, so you had mentioned when we were talking about quotas, there are some businesses that are, really growing right now. And so if you're in a line of work where with products that are really hot right now and seeing a boom in these COVID times, how do you capitalize on that and prepare for when things maybe go back to normal?
Yeah, I think a lot of it still has to be based on the element of trust and relationship you can build now, and making sure that especially if you're going above and beyond because the demand for your customer is really high, ensure that they understand that you are making them a priority and that you are in fact giving them preferential treatment that other people are asking for and you're not able to give because you've only got so many resources to expend. And so subtly, professionally positioning that says, I'm taking care of you now. Let's make sure that we continue this relationship in the future. And that might sound like, listen, I'm going to take care of you now because I know that you're going to take care of me when things settle down. And by take care of me, meaning we're going to maintain a relationship of doing business.
Great. That's a really good point.
So just summarize it, just not assume that it's going to happen. Put it out there in a professional way that says, this is what I would expect. I'm sure you're expecting me to deliver everything I can right now. Here's what I'd expect in return when things settle down and you've got more options, that you remember that I was the one that took care of you in tough times.
Great. Well, Pat, we're almost up to 3 o'clock. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Just a challenge that says, of the things that I had you write down, take action. Take action on at least one thing that you wrote down and continue it. Otherwise, this, as entertaining and educational as it was, I'm sure, I'm saying that facetiously, it will just be a wasted an hour out of your day, out of your week, unless you specifically take action on it. So, and the last thing, it's kind of white noise, but down at the bottom of this page, you see the Sandler.solutions.com. There's a tool that we offer free. It's called the Cell resource, which stands for Sandler E-Learning Library, and it's a year-long subscription that gives you access to podcasts and videos and a lot of sales content that is free for all those that are attending this session. So just click on that website and reach out to us, and we'll be happy to get you signed up on that Cell tool. And it'll give you some things to work on and some behaviors you can do on a weekly basis.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Pat. I really appreciate it. And I think, a lot of what you talked about, it's great for salespeople. It's also great, I think, just in general. I mean, I'm not in sales, and I wrote a couple things down that I'm going to take action on. So I appreciate it. And so thanks again to Pat for opening up this 5-week series that we have going on. It'll be 2 o'clock every Tuesday. And the next one will be about working with the working parents. So what companies can do as parents are sending their kids back to school, or some are staying online, and so how you can kind of help work with those employees in that environment. These are all recorded. They are on the Chamber's website, and also our COVID-19 business resources page that we have. So they're all available for recording. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future webinars, please let us know at news@myjaxchamber.com. That's news@myjaxchamber.com. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We really appreciate it, and have a great day. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Take care.